Hello, everyone, and welcome to Webinar Wednesday. I get so excited about this opportunity to come to everyone at least once a month and spend some time diving deep into a topic, spend some time giving you guys a little bit of hands-on training, and hopefully spend some time talking about a topic that you can really implement now in your business, something you can use right away. We try to make these topics nimble. We try to make these topics relevant to what's going on in the world. And that's why I'm so excited about today's topic, because we're going to be talking about building a support system. We're going to be talking about the idea that the things that you do in your business, they can truly be better if you do them with someone, if you do them with a support system, if you do them in an environment where you're able to truly kind of benefit by having different voices to talk to, different people to get feedback from. And that's why this webinar is all about the idea that sometimes it can be better when we do it together. Sometimes it can be better when we all kind of work together and when we really try to kind of support each other through this process. All right. Now we're just going to do a little bit of a technical check-in. I did a check-in with my folks over in Zoom, but if anyone's watching us live in any of our social media platforms, just give me a quick check. Make sure everyone can see the slides. Make sure everyone can hear me. Even if you're in our Zoom session, if you can just let me know, yes, Stephanie, I can see the slides. Everything is flowing. Thank you for the head nod. Really appreciate it. So it looks like we're ready to dive in. Okay. Now, one quick thing, another little logistical thing. Some of you may not know me yet. Some of you, maybe this is the first time that you've joined us in a webinar. Thanks so much, Vilma, Diane. Thanks so much for letting me know the slides are working. So if you haven't been here before, if this is the first time, first off, let me say welcome. It's so great to have new people. It's so great to have people who have been with me, even some people from day one when I started my business back in 2009, and some people that I've learned to kind of welcome into our vegan mainstream family along the way. So it's so great when I see people. I love to try to refer to everyone by their name because I really want you to kind of feel this family environment that I feel like we're all about, especially as a not just vegan community, but vegan kind of business community, as individuals that are leaders that are kind of changing the world out there. I really love it when we have these sessions like this and we can be interactive, ask questions. And I'm really kind of passionate about marketing. I'm passionate about being able to kind of get our messages out there. I'm very passionate about being able to move the crowd, especially as many of us try to impact the mainstream, and hence the name Vegan Mainstream. But I've been vegan for about 16 years myself, and I started this company back in 2009, which feels like eons ago. But this was really about my passion for the movement, the passion for what we can do, how we can really improve the environment, save animals, and more. So what I try to do is kind of pour that into my presentations, pour that into these times that I spend in our webinar sessions. So I do all of this because one thing that I find we all struggle with when we run our businesses, when we create organizations, even for my nonprofit folks out there, for people who have an idea or a concept, and maybe it's not a business per se yet, but it's something that you're developing. One of the biggest challenges I see, and one of the things that many of us struggle with, is that this road we're on can often at times feel lonely. It can often at times feel like someone doesn't understand what I mean, or doesn't understand what I'm going through, or the bumps in the road that we all bump into. And I say that to say that it's just something that is out there, something that's real. And this is something that happens in general as entrepreneurs. This is generally what can happen as leaders in our business. This can even happen when you have a partner in your business, or maybe you have a team. The idea often as the leader, as the manager, as the founder, as the person even spearheading projects, at times you don't always feel like you have someone who understands what you're going through. I read something on LinkedIn the other day and I absolutely loved it. Oh, I wish I remembered her name so I could give her credit for it. But she put out a post and was talking about how frustrating it was to see someone, put a negative review about her product and service. And she said how it was great to see this other review that was very positive. And she was saying how, it's very hard to get that feedback at times, especially when she said she's been working for 3 days straight and probably wearing the same clothing for the last 3 days. And the idea is that, as we run our businesses, that's what happens to us sometimes. We just get so involved in everything we're doing. We're putting everything into our businesses because we know we can help people. We know we can change the world. We know we can do all these great things. So we get so focused that when you lift your head up, when you get a chance to kind of take a break, when you get an opportunity to kind of look at how things are going, sometimes you feel like you're the only one standing there. And what I want to talk about today is what we can do to help you in those moments. Now, the other side of it is for some of you, you may not feel that lonely feeling, but sometimes we can lose our way. And what I mean by that is that when you start to run a business and you hit a setback, when you run a business and you have like a little bit of a challenge, when you run a business and things don't go the way you expected, that enthusiasm, that inspiration, that motivation that you had when you first started your business can sometimes fade. Sometimes the doubt starts to come in and you worry, am I doing it right? Should I be doing it this way? Maybe I should do this instead. And when you start to get into that mode, by having kind of a support system around you and your business, they can help you through that process. They can help you move forward. If you start to feel like you're losing your way, if you feel like I said, you're feeling a little bit lonely, you feel like you just don't have anyone to chit chat with, it can really make a difference. So I'm going to throw out my first question for today. I'm just curious for many of you who came to this session today, what brought you here? Are you kind of feeling that loneliness of this road to success? Are you feeling like, I wish I had a support system because, help me kind of sort out ideas or information? Or maybe you have a different reason why you're looking for a support system in your business. I'd love for you to jump into the chat and just post it there or post it in the comments if you're in social media and let me know what has brought you to this webinar and why you think you need or would like to have a support system around you if you want to share. I know not everyone wants to share what they're thinking at times, but I'd love to see it because it helps me know why everyone is here. So if you can jump into the chat, that would be appreciated. The other thing I want to talk about is as we talk about putting these support systems in place, I want you to realize that even if you don't feel lonely, even if you don't feel like you've lost your way, it's so important that you have a system in place that helps you rebuild, that helps you repair, that helps you rejuvenate, yourself, your business, your ideas. Because there's just so much going on in the world. Even if we take nowadays with, our post-pandemic, I don't even know if you can call it post-pandemic, but the lives that we're all kind of navigating through these days, whether it's different in different countries if you're in the US, different in different states if you're in the US, it's different in different countries, the different pressures, lockdowns, how you can, or maybe for some of you, you haven't been able to get back to your businesses. And it's so important that you have people that can help you through these tough times. Now, the reality is, yes, right now, things are so unprecedented. But the reality is in running a business, there's always going to be challenges. There's going to be things that can derail your progress. And I want to make sure that today, as you're here, you're thinking about what kind of support system you need so you can constantly rebuild, constantly repair, not just wait for the ultimate situation or the ultimate thing that we can all never guess that has happened recently, but the idea that you really should have this as something that's in place in your business at all times. Okay. All right. I'm just going to look at the comments here. Looking for connecting with other people with the same passion. Love that one. I love the idea of just connecting with people because that's important too. Sometimes, as we're doing this, as we're in this journey, it's nice to talk to someone who gets it, as they say. There's someone who says, you know what, they understand what I'm going through. And that's why we're going to talk about one of the support systems that I think is great for that, which is what I kind of call our accountability buddy program. Someone had put in here that they're looking for some informed perspectives that are helpful, common ground, also important. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Diane, for putting in that comment. So I think we're going to cover some of those items with these three kind of suggestions that I have today. But if you have any other questions as I go forward, we can definitely dive into other options. All right. So let's talk about types of support systems. Let's talk about the options that are in there. Now, I don't want to make it sound like I'm giving you every option under the sun. What I love to do in these sessions is focus. I love to give you some specific things that if you're ready to go right now, if you're ready to make this happen now, if you want to drive change in your business now, I want to give you suggestions. I want to give you items that you can consider. So to me, these are my top 3 favorite support systems. The other thing I want you to take away, and I'll talk about this again as we wrap up towards the end, is that this is going to be a support system that you build over time, you perfect over time, you find the right people to connect with over time. And I don't want you to think that, okay, Stephanie, you gave me 3 types, I got to go do all of that today. Absolutely not. This is something that you're going to pick one today. And I'm going to ask you that as we go through the session today, that which one do you think is going to work best for you right now? But I want you to pick one, put it in place, get some of that benefit, and then later on, add more as needed, expand as needed. Okay? The other thing I want to mention about support systems, I bring this up because sometimes we have one perspective on why we need a support system. And I want to just address some of the things that I put on the left-hand side of the slide. Because when you're putting a support system in place, it's great to have someone to bounce ideas off of. It's great to get perspective from people. But it's also important to make sure that you have someone that you can vent to, someone that you can trust, someone that you can talk to, or maybe a group of people, depending on how you structure it, that are not going to judge you for how you feel, but allow you to kind of get that feeling out, allow you to express the frustration you might be feeling on Tuesday so that you don't have to stay in that stew long. You can talk to someone and then you can propel yourself out of that hot soup back into maybe your traditional perspective on your business. Also, at times we need encouragement. Sometimes we need someone to just say, you know what, you can do this. You can make this happen. And therefore, having a support system to do these things are so important. Often, we need people who can give us candid feedback. I bring this up because it's one thing when you surround yourself with a group of people that just motivate you, love encouragement, love people who are going to be there. But I also want to make sure when you're putting a support system in place, you also have some people that will give you some feedback that you may not like hearing, that will give you some feedback and tell you when maybe that's not the best idea, or maybe that's not the best approach. Because you want to make sure in your circle, you don't have people who are just going to echo back what you need. You do need people who can be constructive in their feedback and people who can actually help guide you at times. And then the final thing I don't want you to forget is that whatever support system that you choose, there needs to be an element of it where people can help you celebrate. People can help you celebrate the good things that happen in our businesses. Because when I talk about that lonely feeling earlier, sometimes that loneliness is not that you feel like lonely on a daily basis. I don't want to make it sound like you just feel isolated. I don't want to over dramatize it. But what I mean by the lonely feeling sometimes is that because you've been walking this path often by yourself, people don't understand what it took for you to get this win. People don't understand how far you had to go to get there. Because from the outside, it may look fairly polished. It may look like you have it all together. But people may not know that, you know what, you were terrified of doing presentations. And the fact that you did a presentation at a summit, the fact that you did a live Zoom session and got up there, did a great job, people loved it. It was a huge accomplishment for you. And you want to have people or individuals that you can get on the phone with and say, I did it. I was scared. I was nervous. I wasn't sure. It was my first time. It was a bigger audience. It was a group of people I wasn't sure. I tried a new topic and I did it. And you want someone who can understand what it took for you to get there and appreciate that and celebrate with you. So I just wanted to plant those seeds because I think sometimes we get very finite with our support groups and we're just like, well, I need somebody who can let me know if my product's working right, or I need someone who can help me just make good decisions. And that's important too, but don't forget that celebration piece because it's key to have someone in your corner that's cheering you on and knows when you accomplish something big and great. All right, so let's talk about the support systems. All right, 3 different types, 3 different options that I want to give you. First one I call kind of our sounding board. This is kind of a group of advisors, a little bit more in a formalized kind of feeling of individuals, not completely formal. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But normally these are a group of people that you can bounce ideas off of. Normally this could be a group, so it can be a formal group of people that you meet with all the time, or it can be a group of people that you meet with individually ad hoc. All right, I'm going to talk in a little bit more detail on kind of the definition of them and how to recruit for them as well. The other group is a focus group. Now, I didn't see any comments in here. I'm going to look at my last one in here. It's a little bit longer one. I'm just going to read them really quick. I didn't see a comment yet for someone who's maybe looking for customer feedback. But I really think a focus group is such a cool thing to do. Now, a focus group is a very technical term for many people who are maybe marketers out there. There's a very specific way that focus groups are created and organized and how they give feedback. So I'm really taking that concept and bringing it into a small business. And the concept is that what if you had a group of prospects, meaning people who would be potential customers, or maybe a group of previous customers that you could bounce ideas off of? Because if you're trying to expand your business, I know some of you out there have been in business, had success, great things have happened, and you're trying to decide what's my next product or service. What's the way that I should bundle things together or create different offerings? And if you're trying to get a sense of which direction to go, which option to choose, sometimes it's really great to have a group of customers that you can bounce ideas off of and let them know that, hey, they are your focus group. There are individuals that will give you candid feedback from that perspective. Now, the key here is you want them to be customers, or if they're prospects, you want them to be people who are your potential customers, not just your cousin and your niece or family members who just know and love you, but people who would ultimately buy your product. All right, and we'll talk about that in more detail as well. And then the last group that I love to do, and this is something we actually facilitate here at Vegan Mainstream, is getting an accountability buddy. And this is often the idea of working with someone who's more like a colleague. As opposed to in a sounding board, you're really getting someone who's an advisor. So they might be a little bit ahead of you as far as experience. They might have done some of what you've done before. Or a colleague, sometimes it's nice to have somebody who goes through the same stuff that you're going through. So they're a vegan business owner, you're a vegan business owner. You know, they're running similar type of business or something in similar kind of land. So therefore they're going through it in a similar way and you guys can cross-pollinate ideas. You can talk about those experiences. You don't have to be in the same industry at all because we're not trying to necessarily create this odd competition thing, which I don't really believe is necessary in our community. I really believe like we got to move this movement forward, not compete with each other, but that's a different webinar at a different time. But the idea is talking and having someone in your orbit, say, for example, you're an author, having another author that you can talk to so you can talk about the process of, selling a book. So you can talk about the process of selling your third book. So you can talk about the process of what it's like now versus before and being able to think about these things and setting this up. I think that can really, really be great. Okay. Oh, hey, Diane. I'm glad you said that. Diane just offered kind of support to people that if you're looking to run a focus group, Diane has done it before. So if you're in Zoom, check out that comment there and send Diane a message if you're looking for someone who can help you run a focus group. Thanks so much for putting that recommendation in there. Okay. All right. Now let's talk about the formal approach to this and the informal approaches. Actually, let me back up before I go into these details. What do you guys think so far? I'm going to go into more detail about these options, but which one speaks to you so far? If anybody's kind of watching right now, if you're live or you're in our Zoom session, which one of these, I'm going to give more detail on how to do them, how to recruit and everything, but just from my overview so far, which one of these do you think would help you? Or you think a sounding board kind of advisory group would be great for you? Do you think a focus group or some type of group that's going to give you feedback on your products would be great? Or do you think more of like an accountability buddy, like having a colleague or something like that would be a great option? Just drop it in the comments because I'm just curious where everyone is. Love it. So smart doing number 1 and 3. Great. All right. Let's talk a little bit about the formal and informal process while you are putting those comments in there. All right. So can this be formal? Should it be like an actual board of advisors if you're putting your sounding board together? You definitely could. But my recommendation is to not formalize it so much the first time out. The reason being is for most of you, you already feel overworked. You already feel exhausted. You already feel like you got like a gazillion things going on in your business and in your life. And if you're going to put a board together, there's a lot of responsibility around there. There's a lot that goes with having kind of a formal board and that process and how they meet and so forth. Is it great? Absolutely. Nonprofits do it and for-profit businesses do it. Absolutely, you can. But what I recommend is maybe starting with that more informal environment, meaning reaching out to people individually, asking them if they'd be willing to advise you, or if you could call them every now and then to get feedback, see if you can get some yeses, test it out, interact with these people a little bit, and then later on, you can always formalize it. Because in some cases, we might not have picked the right person. In some cases, timing might change. And also, once you've put some of this in place, you may get a better sense of what you need in the long run. So that would be my recommendation, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with putting this into a more formalized format. All right, let me just check so far. Someone said that they're going to be doing testers. Perfect. That you had testers for recipes. Yes. Oh my goodness, Miss Santo, it's so good to see you. I'm so excited. Yes, it would be great because as you're doing a cookbook, most people have testers for recipes. Great thing to do to develop those recipes. But as you're building the book, as you're building the content, as you're even building maybe the next topic for your next book, I think it's great to have a focus group for that because they can help you hone in on topics, hone in on maybe which recipes stay in and which recipes end up on, as they say, the cutting room floor. And also a lot of cookbooks these days are not just recipes, but they tell stories or they give people background information about equipment and so forth. So I think this is great. So I see some number 1s and number 3s, focus groups. So a couple of different options there. So it's good to see that some of you are seeing an option that's going to work for you. Okay, let's dive into sounding board. Let's dive into advisory groups. Let's dive into them a little bit more detail. Okay. When I talk about an advisory group or a sounding board, the biggest thing we have to really realize is that these have to be people that you trust. Because you're going to be giving people a little bit of exposure to what's happening inside your business. Some of this stuff is not publicly available, what's happening in your business or what you're planning to do or what you're intending to do. So you really have to make sure that these are people that are much more in your professional network, sometimes in your personal network. You might have met them through something personal, realized what their background was, and this is someone who really makes sense to be someone you want to talk with. The idea is that most of these boards should not be huge, especially if you formalize it in the beginning. But even from an informal standpoint, I tell people to start with like 5 people max. Because what you're not trying to do is overload yourself with the amount of people to kind of manage. And you're just getting a sense of a few people that you can reach out to. All right. I always love to get people who have a lot of different type of backgrounds. So this is one where you're going to be looking for someone who maybe has an operations background, maybe a marketing background. Maybe you're going to have someone who has a legal background because you're going to be doing a lot of things that constantly have a lot of legal questions to it. Because maybe you're breaking through an industry or doing something in an industry, especially when we do a lot of things in like wellness and health and so forth. Sometimes it's nice to have someone who has that maybe legal background or perspective. So think about making sure that you have different type of representation. The other thing I like to do for my groups is sometimes I like to find someone who's kind of in an area that's not necessarily my expertise. So they help me kind of balance that gap. They balance that missing kind of component that I may not have. So when you're looking at backgrounds, definitely make sure that you're not just picking people like you. You're not just picking entrepreneurs. You're not just picking people from your city or your town. You want people that have some different perspective on things so that they can really look at the world a little bit differently. So they can look at what you're doing. And because you're looking at it through like this lens, you almost want somebody who can look at it through this lens. And therefore you can have a different perspective. And then the other thing is, even though I call this a group, even though I kind of have the word board in it, but I'm really using it more as the term sounding board, they really can be individuals that you associate with on an individual level, meaning they never come together as a board. They never like meet as a group or anything official. The idea is that you have 5 people that throughout the year, you may only call them 4 or 5 times in a year, but the concept will be that you'll talk to them individually. So when you're having trouble in this environment, you call this person. When you're having some ideas in another environment, you call this person. When you're looking to maybe do a launch and you're looking for partners or collaboration recommendations, then you call a different person. And therefore, they're your advisory group, but they're not necessarily functioning like an advisory board. Okay. Now, when it comes to recruiting people, when it comes to these sounding boards, I really love to use things like LinkedIn. Or any of the professional groups that you belong to, especially for many of you that even part of groups like Toastmasters, as an example, any of these kind of areas where you're going to get to meet people in a professional environment, I find it's a great way to get connected and find these individuals because you're going to see a little bit of their skills on display. So if you're working on your presentation skills, you're in Toastmasters, you see someone who really has excelled or someone who runs the group, you can talk to them and see if they would want to be a part of it. I also love to use LinkedIn. How many of you guys use LinkedIn? Just hit in the chat. Oh, perfect. Thanks for raising your hand. Yep. A little bit. I see it. I see you say a little bit. I love LinkedIn to find people. I love LinkedIn. Oh, hey, Velva, I'm glad you're using it too. Because I find LinkedIn is so great because you can see a person's like profile. You can see what they're interested in. You can see their background. Because a lot of people I know who are running businesses, the business they're running today does not always give you the full picture of their experience. So some people may be a health coach, but in the past, they were a lawyer or they were a financial advisor and so forth. So that's why I love using things like LinkedIn because it gives you a perspective on people's background and see if it's the right fit. Always asking for a friend for a recommendation, asking for people to give introductions. Sometimes I even use things like LinkedIn to find people and find who's connected with that person because you can go on LinkedIn and see who's connected with whom. And if a friend of yours or a colleague of yours knows this person, then you can say, hey, I'm thinking of reaching out or I'm thinking of talking with this person. Would you mind doing an introductory email? Because I'm looking for people to kind of bounce ideas off of, especially if you don't maybe know that person that well personally. The other thing is think about setting up meetings with these individuals. I know it's a little bit hard nowadays to do a lunch meeting, but when we get back to these opportunities, that's a great thing to do. But you can also do a Zoom meeting with these individuals. It's really great to spend some time not just on the phone talking to people. I really find, I know we get a little bit of Zoom fatigue these days, but it's really fun to be able to see people's expressions and responses to things, especially when you're going to be asking people for advice. And then the other key thing when you're recruiting, especially for something like this, where you're going to be coming to someone who is an expert maybe in their area and you're looking for them to give you feedback, is that you might want to make sure that you get a commitment from them on when they would truly be available. Now, I don't mean that someone's on your sounding board, you're not going to be meeting with them like once a week. That's like a coach. That's a little different. This is going to be someone that you might talk to once a month, every other month. This is someone that you're going to kind of just check in with. But the idea is it's so important because many of these people are going to get busy and you want to get a sense from them. Is it okay if I call you once a month? Do you prefer if we have a more formal time, or is it okay if I just shoot you a note or send you a text message and then we set up some time? Find out what their commitment level is to you, because then you won't be disappointed. They won't be disappointed, and it puts everybody on the same page. Okay? Now, let's talk a little about focus groups. Now, as I mentioned, there's a much more formal way of doing focus groups. I've done it before in my past, in my days with GE. I'm using this concept a little bit more loosely in a small business because I want to make sure that it's, within reach. So the idea is when you're building this focus group, especially when you're looking at potential customers, I want you to have a sizable group. I normally like to start with a group of like 10 or 20. The reason being is when it comes to potential customers, when it comes to people who are customers and so forth, a lot of those individuals may not stay with you through the whole process. They may not stay as active at all times. And when you're looking for feedback, especially on a product or a service or an option or an offer or pricing, often you need enough people to get that feedback. You can't just ask 3 or 4 people. You normally want to get a large enough group of people to do it. Now, I would love it if you could have a bigger group, but I don't want you to go and do it all. Don't want you to be overwhelmed. So starting with like 10 or 20 is a really good place to do it. Now, I love to recruit everywhere. I love to look for people, but I create criteria on the type of people you want in a focus group, the type of people. And a lot of this criteria is like an overlap between your ideal customer and the type of people who can give you certain types of feedback, people who, will have a sense of high communication and availability as well. The other thing is you could set up a mini Facebook group for your focus group, especially if you want to get to bigger numbers. Now, remember, this is going to be a focus group Facebook group. I don't mean take your own Facebook group and kind of turn it into a focus group one day by just posting something there. When you do that, you can get short-term maybe feedback, but the expectation isn't there yet. So if you just have a Facebook group for your business and then you're like, what do you guys think about this? You may just get some offhanded comments. You may not get stuff that's so focused. What I'd rather you do is kind of have a Facebook group that you keep going, or maybe a Facebook group that you use for like 60 days as you go through this process of doing a new book, launching a new product, launching a new service. And what happens is during that, let's say 60-day period, they're in this focus group, Facebook group. And therefore, not only can you post, you can do live broadcast and show them the product, show them the prototype of it as an example. If you're doing services, you could break down the options. You could even show people the services that you offer if you do coaching or training or transformation or any of those things, okay? But the key here is you want to do something live and want to do something where people can come together. So I love to use Zoom as well when I'm doing focus groups, okay? The other thing is I want you to make sure that you treat them like buyers. I want to make sure that when you use this group, it's not just general feedback. Do you like it in purple? Do you like it in green? But we want to make sure that when you're talking to them, you understand what their need is on why they would buy your product, why they would buy your service, how they would use it, Would it be indispensable, or is it a luxury item? And even though it's a luxury item, would they be willing to buy it? Like, you really want to make sure you ask these buying questions, because I think sometimes when we get feedback, we get likes and dislikes, but we don't ask the commitment level of individuals and say, would you buy it at this price? Would you buy, especially when you're doing products and services? And we're doing it right now. Like, I'm doing these online courses and I'm asking people, would you rather pay for it monthly, or would you be interested in doing it annual? If we went for an annual plan, what kind of discount do you expect on an annual plan? So asking people those very specific questions is really important, because then you can act on it. And then the last thing I love to do is reward them. Reward them for what they've done. And often you can reward them with the products and services that you have at your fingertips. Maybe you get items that are donated from your partners or sponsors, pass those along to your customers. So if people send you a cookbook and you're a YouTuber, or maybe you do video content or something like that, and people will send you a cookbook for you to do a review on, then potentially turn around and do a giveaway for your focus group people, or of all the cookbooks that you've gotten over the last 3 months, take those and pass them on. So the idea is reward them in some way for their support. You don't have to pay them financially always, but often it's nice to either give them a discount on the new product or service, or giving them something that would make sense. Any questions so far? We got one more group, but what do you guys think? Is this kind of working? Is this something that would make sense? Okay, perfect. Thanks for the thumbs up. All right. All right. Recruiting. Focus groups. The key here is really making sure you understand your criteria. That's the hardest part of this process, especially for a focus group. So you want to make sure that when you're picking people and who you're looking for, who are the customers that you want to serve? Because I think sometimes we either do two things. We want to help everybody. So we're like, everybody's my customer. Everybody can be in the focus group. Everyone can help. And the challenge with that is it doesn't give you much focus. It doesn't help you understand people's needs and who. So I really want to make sure that you have kind of like a customer persona, like who's your customer, and that specific person is in your focus groups. It doesn't mean that someone else may not join. It doesn't mean that someone who's outside of your target customer may not buy your product or service. They will. And eventually you will create other personas to cover those groups. But we have to start somewhere and start very focused to make sure you're using the language. You got to make sure the approach, all of those things really can matter in how you drive your business forward. So let's make sure that your focus group really represents the people that you're looking for. I love to do a form, whether you use something as basic as a Google form, whether you set up a landing page on your website, whatever is the easiest for you, that kind of explains what you're looking for and who you'd like to sign up, and then let people go to that page, fill out the information, you read through their results, and then pick from there. I'll share that form on social media. I'll share it in email and say, hey, I'm putting together a focus group, just looking for people. I love to do email because people in email are sometimes one step a little bit closer to your customers often, because they've already made a little bit of a commitment to jump on your email list. And then once again, talk to friends, see if people would recommend people, anyone that they think would be a good candidate. All right. And then let's talk about our last group here, the accountability buddy. Now, I really love this because this is something that we've actually picked up in our business and in our Slack community, our Vegan Mainstream Village. We actually have been matching people up, helping people find accountability buddies, and we just do it for free. It's just a part of one of the things that we offer. So if you're interested and you're in our Slack community, just send a note or shoot me an email. We'll get you all connected and get you one of the forms. But you can do this yourself. You can do this informally. And the idea is kind of just connecting with one or two colleagues. I love the photo on the side, even though it's not relevant to today while we're socially distancing, but the concept of it is what I really want you to take away. Is that you could meet with one person, maybe two people, and you do it in a very informal environment. Like the idea of meeting each other at Starbucks for coffee once a month, I think is such a cool way to get connected with people. Now, meeting in a coffee shop locally means it has to be someone local. So you don't have to do that. You can do it on Zoom. We can do it on that on all different types of platforms. But I bring that up because I just want to make sure that you think about the connection that you're building, not just who's someone who can help me. Because sometimes we forget that this is like a mutual thing because we have a need, but the idea is that you want to really kind of build a partnership and that connection. And if you think of it of like almost like a coffee shop thing, or even like, all right, I'm gonna throw out a crazy Zoom thing that might work, is that you may have like a lunch meeting on Zoom. And I know for some of you, you might have just rolled your eyes at me, but hold on. Let me tell you what I mean, is that I love to be able to sit down and have lunch person to person, but I think it's pretty cool to have a meeting over lunch over Zoom because then it's a more relaxed meeting. It kind of resembles what we do in person. And what I don't want people to forget about is the things that you do in person or used to do in person can always translate to the digital space. So don't be afraid to say, let's just do a lunch Zoom call. I'm going to grab my lunch, you grab your lunch. You guys may even talk about your lunch in the beginning. Maybe you make a dish together or make a similar dish. That way you build some rapport with each other. It's not just let's get down to business, but you build a little bit of relationship with people and you're doing things together. Like having lunch together is a really, I think, great way to make the relationship a little bit more, I don't know, personable, I guess. The other thing is you really want to have some rhythm. When you do an accountability buddy, this is someone you're meeting every other week. This is someone you're meeting every 3 weeks. You really want to have a consistent schedule in place to make this find out. Yes, absolutely. It's a great question. Comment in here that someone said, I'm finding out now that a lot of people are delighted to visit by Zoom. Yes, it has definitely been a big plus. And yeah, I'm just going to add to that comment is when, before all of this happened, I used to do all Zoom calls and I can't tell you how many people would not be on camera and they'd be like, Stephanie, can't you just call me? We're now with so many people using Zoom and comfortable with it. It's amazing how many people will really get on here and do some fun stuff together. I mean, I use Zoom almost every single week. On a Sundays, my niece and I, because we're in 2 different locations, we cook together. So we're in the kitchen together. This week, we're going to do pickles. I can't wait. And we're going to make pickles. Sorry, I should say. It's not going to be like cucumber pickles. We're going to do like carrot pickles and radish pickles and all the good stuff. I can't wait to do it. But the idea is that it's a way for us to do something together. And because we're doing it on Zoom now, we can do it. We've been doing it every week. Oh my goodness, it might have been a year now that we've been doing it. And it's a way for us to connect. It's a way for me to make dishes and make things. And also it's a way for us to discover things together. So it is great the way that we can use these tools a little bit differently to bend to connecting with each other. The other thing I like about accountability buddy programs is remember this is all about the good and the bad. This isn't just about calling someone to either brag about what great happened or just vent about the problems. This is kind of a way for you to kind of talk about this was something good, this was something kind of crazy, but I found a way back. And that way you can have that candid conversation. And then the only other thing I would say is just keep in mind when you do an accountability buddy, especially if you have 1 or 2 people that are colleagues, you want to make sure that there's someone who has kind of a complement to your personality. We're all a little bit different. Some of us are a little more introvert. Some of us are a little more extrovert or extra. Yeah, I said introvert. I get it wrong. You guys know what I mean, right? All right. Some of us are a little more outgoing. Here's a better way to say it. Some of us are a little more reserved. And what you want to do is find someone who complements. Doesn't mean it's someone just like you. Thanks, Emma. It doesn't mean you have to find someone who's a mirror of you, because sometimes we try to do that. You want someone who complements you. And therefore, you guys are really building kind of a relationship that you can truly trust. All right. Recruitment is very similar to the others where you really have to get a sense of criteria. As I mentioned before, in our Vegan Mainstream Village, we do this where we match people up. It's been interesting, matching dumb people up. Some people it works out really well. Some people we just rematch it if it doesn't work out. But if you're looking for it and you are looking for an accountability buddy and we can help you with, or you'd like us to help you with it, just go to our website. At the top, it'll have our support options, and then you'll see a page for accountability buddy. We're finishing up the whole page, but the form's on there, so you can click on the form and sign up. If you can't find it, just shoot me an email after this, and I'll make sure you get it. We recruit sometimes on social media, but I don't recruit in the same way I would do for a focus group. Like in social media, I'm going to recruit more through like messaging as opposed to like a blast. And then as always, we're going to ask for friends and ask for someone to do a recommendation. Okay. So as I mentioned before, we're getting to the end of the slide. So we're going to jump into our Zoom group soon for questions. So if anyone has any questions so far that I missed, or anything I didn't address yet, you can start putting them in the chat. If you're on our Zoom session, I'm going to turn on everyone's mic. We're going to turn on cameras. And for our final kind of 10 minutes together, I'm going to make sure I answer questions. And then also we can chit chat a little bit. But one final piece I want to leave everyone with, especially my folks that are listening to this through our broadcast, is to really start with one type of support system and then expand from there. These are all can be great options. These can all work really well. But where we make our mistakes sometimes, where these things can become overwhelming, is we try to do too much too fast. Even putting a sounding board in place that's like 3 people is reasonable. I said 5 max. I don't mean you have to max it out. So use this as a starting point. Use this as a place for you to be able to really kind of connect with people, find people who are like-minded, like many of you put in the messages, and also as a way for you to really get the feedback and support that you need. And like I said, celebrate, because that's going to be a huge part of what you are going to do. It's going to be a huge part of how you can really maybe go to that next level of success. And I think it's going to be a huge part of a little bit of our sanity as not only vegan business owners, entrepreneurs, but also with all the social distancing. It really helps to be and feel those connections again. So I wanted to make sure that I gave you some suggestions and some ideas about it, because I think this is going to be a great way for all of us to move forward. All right. So with that, we're going to wrap up our session here on social media. Thank you everyone for joining. Hey, Jana, it was great that you joined us from Sri Lanka. Wonderful, wonderful. If you have any other questions, glad everyone is enjoying today's content. This is great. So we're going to close out our live broadcast, but everyone in Zoom, hang tight for me, because I'm going to jump over there and we're going to answer some questions. So see you later, everyone, on our streams. And thank you for joining. Bye.